Hi, and welcome to Tealium Summer School. This is all about the future of data and AI. I'm Marinda Hillier, VP of Marketing for EMEA here at Tealium, and I'm thrilled for you to join us on this on-demand series. Whether you're building your data foundation or exploring the power of AI, you're here in the right place. In this first lesson of the foundation track, we're diving into the modern data architecture and its critical role in shaping connected customer experiences. Mike Anderson, our founder over here at Tealium, will guide you through the essentials of building a robust data foundation. Enjoy.
Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are. Thank you for joining us. We know you have a lot of options right now and probably unlimited number of webinars you could join. So we are very grateful that you're giving us your time. My name is Saf Ketan. I head up product marketing at Tealium. And with me, I have Mike Anderson, our fearless founder. Good morning, Mike. Welcome.
Good morning, Saf. How are you?
Fun fact for the audience, I don't think I would be at Tealium if Mike hadn't given me a chance 6 years ago. So always grateful for that. And for everybody on the call, very rare to get access like this to Mike. So jam whatever questions you want for us in the chat, and we will keep addressing them as we go. Our topic today is modern data architecture and how it affects a connected customer experience. And, we've already kept you guys waiting. So Mike, this is a topic that we've been hearing about since Snowflake put out that report a couple of years ago, the modern data architecture. I know you hear about that from your customers. In your mind, what would you say that means actually?
Well, I love the directional moves that I'm seeing in the industry right now, where companies are realizing, first, I need to get a handle on my data. I need to get a handle on my customer data, and best experiences win. I think those are themes that companies are looking at today and saying, okay, this we agree on this. The best experiences win. We have a lot of choices. I can take Uber, I can take Lyft, I can stay at Hyatt, I can stay at Marriott, I can fly, Lufthansa, British Airways. I can't fly British Airways when the airport's on fire. But the idea behind this is that I have a lot of choices, and so the best experience is going to win. And so now you sort of do what Bezos said to do, which is put the customer in the center and then work back from that. And so you work from this, how do I put a great experience in front of the customer? And you can look around everything that we do. You see broken experiences all the time. You see some companies that get it right, companies are getting better, but you still see a lot of room for improvement out there. And so when I think about the modern data architecture, I think, what are the pieces that you need to be able to interpret the customer data as they're interacting with your brand, and then interact with the customer based on that data and based on what it's telling you that this customer is now interested in. And so we know that a static, flat, non-dynamic experience doesn't appeal to everybody. It can't possibly appeal to everybody, right? Experiences have to be dynamic. It doesn't mean they have to be, this guy's favorite color is green, so our website has to totally change, but it has to be, this is who I am. And so you're going to do better if you put if you put things in there dynamically that align better with who I am.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things that we see this stat everywhere, that 80% or more customers prefer relevant and targeted content and offers. And a lot of them are happy to share data if they know that it's going to be used for a better experience and used responsibly, then they're okay. And if they trust the brand. They have a problem when they feel the data collection is creepy, or when they don't understand it, or when it feels intrusive. But nothing can replace a relevant piece of content directed at you that's timely and useful. I think those are always relevant. So now, you talked about better experiences win. And I think as we are progressing post-COVID, digital finally, I think, became king. And as we are progressing, people are starting to realize, oh, everything is actually connected. If I have a phone call with my cable company and then I get on chat and they don't know what I just spoke about in the phone call, it bugs me now, right? And we didn't have that before. You made the comment that if you bought a left-hand guitar and they know you're a lefty and you get a right-hand guitar offer, that really bothers you, especially if it's not available in left-handed guitars. So the reason I'm talking about this is the consumer is starting to get way more savvy about what a connected experience means. And the reality is, what we are seeing is you need to access data from across your ecosystem when you're trying to give that experience. Even if you're trying to put all your data in one place, it doesn't mean that data is available to you when the customer is interacting with you. So that's really this conversation that we're starting to go into. So in context of better experiences, Mike, if I double click a little bit more into the modern data architecture, what are some things that make it modern? What are some things that are changing over the years as you've been looking at this stuff?
Well, I think the first big one that we started here at Tealium was starting with the data foundation, starting with tagging up the websites and the mobile apps and the customer touch points. When we started this thing, it was still very much that the data that was being tagged was vendor specific. It was Omniture specific or website story specific or Adobe Analytics specific or Google Analytics specific. It was specific to the vendor. And so we wanted to make it specific to the business. And more importantly, a business knows that they thrive on having customers. So through passive aggression, it was going to be that this data foundation was going to start having business nomenclature, but also be very customer centric as well. And so the first piece of it starts with the data foundation, right? If I have data that I'm tagging up on my web and mobile for right now, that's in a nomenclature that speaks to a vendor, then anytime that I want to use that data, I've got to have a decoder ring, right? That's not going to work. And anytime that you have to add a decoder process in there, you're slowing down the flow of data. And so it's like, you go into like those UN meetings where somebody talks and then the data goes into somebody's headphones, and then they hear the translated version of that. But it's very clunky, right? It's very, very clunky to do that kind of stuff. And so we've gotten to where like the software and things have gotten better where I can say it, it interprets it, and it's almost as if we're having a real-time conversation, right? And the more of that data lookup you have to put in there, the slower the conversation becomes.
There you go. Yeah.
Right? So that's the first thing is that the cleaner you make the data up the front, first off, your businesses are already, own it. Your businesses are already siloed, right? They're all siloed. I haven't seen one vendor out there that's truly unsiloed. But this data about your customers starts to unsilo because you now start speaking apples to apples and oranges to oranges because you're talking about the same data. Not, well, the data we collected in my Splunk logs over here says this. Well, the data we collected in Google Analytics says this. Yeah, two totally different systems. They're not gonna align in the data they collect. So the first thing is that strong data foundation. And there's kind of two places we can go. I think the customers are probably itching to get more into the next phase of the architecture. So I say let's go there, and then let's come back and talk to the completeness of the data of the customer interaction points.
Yeah, I mean, so every time we chat, you say so many things, and I feel like, oh, I'm going to change all my questions now. But so this nomenclature, hopefully the audience, right, is thinking about this. Like if you have normally when you're bringing data in from every different tool, from your analytics tool, from your personalization tool, your call center, that data is organized how the tool organizes it. That's what that tool needs it for. Now you have to ETL that and transform that into some common language in your central data store, which is now usually the data cloud, right? Yeah. And yes, for big batch data, I ETL it. What do I do with real-time data? What do I do with streaming data from my web and mobile? And if I'm doing IoT for any reason, now suddenly the scale of this data is so much, and you cannot ETL after the fact easily and still have the same amount of responsive interactions that you want, because you're spending too much time fixing this stuff, right?
Right.
So the kinds of questions that we are starting to see, and even in the chat, thank you everybody asking questions, we'll get to those, is what is the role of the data cloud now as we talk about this data foundation, right? How much bigger is this real-time, lifetime? All these conversations are starting to become much more relevant, because I feel like data clouds have made this so much more accessible. So now it's a very big part of this conversation.
I'm happy because I think the data clouds have simplified things dramatically. When we used to talk about the audience stream years ago, years ago, like back in like the 2015s kind of, at that point, Salesforce had just bought ExactTarget, and customers would come to me and say, Salesforce is telling me I should build all my audiences in ExactTarget. And I said, yeah, if you're only going to do email. If you're going to do other things like ad or social or anything like that, then you need to have the audiences defined somewhere else that sits a little farther away from the execution engine. And a CDP is a good place to have that because it's very well connected, and it's hopefully your data syndication layer for getting these out there. But if you have a data warehouse, one of the best places to define your audiences and define your customers is in that customer data warehouse, because that's your own data set, right? There's a big push right now with companies saying, I need a cloud data warehouse. And I think one of the main driving factors is because they want to control the schema. Yeah. When you have your data all over the place in all kinds of different systems, it's hard to put Humpty Dumpty back together, right?
Yeah.
It's really tough. And so by saying we're going to bring all this data in-house, I own it, right? I can own the dashboards, the visualization that I put on top of it. I own the rules of how we build data. And so I think the cloud data warehouse, it really has simplified things because it's the foundational tier to the architecture that says, this is where my data goes.
Yep. This
is where all my data is stored. Now,
I mean, honestly, it's the best tool to actually go towards a single source of truth. The data cloud is the right tool for that, I think.
The customer 360. I mean, like, people are never going to truly get customer 360s, but the data warehouse is an excellent view of the lifetime of a customer, who that customer is for the lifetime. Now, you just don't buy a data warehouse preloaded, right? You have to load the data, and that's where data collection and data foundation. So we're now on like the second step. Get your data foundation in place, get your data collection going, and then the customer data warehouse, the cloud data warehouse is your destination for that data for the purpose of understanding the lifetime record of your customer. Okay?
Yeah.
I think that's a big piece. Now we move into let's say an intermediate step, which is around like maybe analytics, maybe business insight. I absolutely think companies should be running their business insights off of their own data warehouses.
100%.
Like I'm spending all this time on the data foundation. I'm doing high quality, consented data collection, trying to get this data into my data warehouse because my data warehouse is my future. But I'm not going to run analytics off of like some other separate system. This is an event to de-silo my business, and now I'm siloing my data, right? So
and in fact, the analytics system doesn't even have all the data that your data cloud has. So why would you, I mean, if you can run analytics on your data cloud, that's what you should do, and that's where things are going. Actually,
I think that's absolutely where they're going. So I think the data warehouse is a strong staple for the businesses to stay. This is our golden record. This is the closest we're going to get to a customer 360. This is the view of the customer. And honestly, this is where I should be running my reports and that drive my business. And so I think there. Now the next piece of this is, how do I tackle experiences? Okay. That's the next task of this modern data architecture, right? The first one is I need to get high quality data and I need to be able to store it. The second thing is I need to be able to have insights on top of it that show me what's going on. Now, the third one is now I need to be able to influence experiences because better experiences win.
Yep.
Okay. Now, so now I'm gonna like jump sideways here for a second, right? Because I'm gonna definitely talk about that. But the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to the data foundation and talk about something that I'm seeing in the industry pretty much everywhere, which is we as customers are starting to demand a very connected experience. We see with the likes of the Amazons and with the likes of like the Hulus and the Netflix, right? We see what a good connected experience can look like, right? The potential. And we're getting high potentials out of some of these brands that are treating us well. One of the biggest gaps that I see right now is companies do a pretty good job tagging up their website to make sure that I get customer data from there. They might tag up their mobile apps. They might not. A lot of times that depends on just scheduling and resources and things like that. But when you don't have some of these data touch points tagged, you have blind spots in your customers, right? I gave you the one example. Like, let's say I opened up a Home Depot and said, I'm gonna staff an expert in the electrical line, in the electrical aisle, and the plumbing aisle, because I only have 2 people that can work here. Now, if you need paint, you need other kinds of things. Sorry, you're not going to get any help. Right? Yep. It's not. So what ends up happening is when you walk out of that store, I say, okay, that guy's interested in plumbing, but what else is he interested? Is he interested in gardening? I don't know. Is he interested in raise barbecues? I don't know. I don't have any idea. So you got to have everything tagged up, and you got to have everything working with each other. And the big gap that I see right now is with the call center. And that is the biggest blind spot. And here's the problem. When I come to your website, when I go to salve.com, I'm happy, right? I'm going to engage with your brand. When I open up the Salve mobile app, I'm happy. I'm going to engage with your brand, right? But what's my disposition when I call into your call center? I'm not happy, right? I'm not happy I'm not lonely. I can go get on social streams all day long. I can text everybody that I know. I'm not lonely, right? So I don't need the call center for a buddy. But the idea is that I'm calling in and I'm upset. And when you have these broken experiences where you know what I was doing on the website, and then all of a sudden I call in the call center, and it seems like the call center is this absolute stateless view of who I am, what I want, and what
last week's view or something, right? Yeah.
Those are the good ones, right? That have like a delay. Like, hey, at least I know you're like platinum or something like that. But I see that as a really big miss right now. And going through what I went through last week with Heathrow, being stuck in London, I can say this. I don't feel as helpless as those 2 astronauts did. Okay. But being stuck in a foreign country, not feeling great, wanting to get home, it was really, really tough to have that disconnect between you should know exactly what I'm trying to do.
Yes.
Right? You should also know exactly what my needs are. And it was very challenging. It was a very challenging situation. And so that's my first thing, is that when you talk about your data foundation, the complete connected customer experience is very important, because if you don't connect areas where your customers are going to go, then you're blind to what their interests are, and you're missing out on possible experiences you can influence. Okay.
Yeah. So wow, so much. So for and I wanna just acknowledge we're getting good questions. We will get to those. So let me just sort of summarize what the takeaways that I'm hearing from Mike, because there's so many things here, right? The data cloud is genuinely the right place to try to go after this customer 360 idea. It's what everybody's starting to do, and I think it's the realization of the vision that we've been selling for years about first party data should all be in one place. It gives you a lot of insight and clarity and lifetime analysis. what it needs to still solve for is connectivity throughout your ecosystem, because even if that data is all in one place, my customer can be touching me from any different point in my ecosystem. And at that time, to be able to use the data from that interaction, maybe a model that's living somewhere else in my ecosystem, and then some specific data point from somewhere, that part is still needing to get solved, especially as AI is getting more and more distributed, right? So on the one hand, there is this idea that let's make first party data in my business language. So any business unit, when they look at it, it makes sense to them. Let's put it all in one place, and let's make sure that it's all able to connect with each other. Now, the downside of that becomes that requires a lot of ETL. And then it's rare that that combined data set is absolutely last minute ready, right? It's always 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes delayed because of ETL. And now you have this real-time gap, or maybe even an anonymous visitor gap that you have sitting on top of this data cloud. So let me ask you, in your mind, are data cloud first architectures the right way to go, or are they missing some element? Or how are you advising customers when you see someone bet on a Snowflake, for example?
Okay, let me try to word this so I don't contradict myself. When I'm talking about data storage, when I'm talking about giving me a view of the lifetime customer, when I'm talking about a foundation that I want to build my business analytics and hopefully customer analytics on top of, the customer data warehouse is amazing, right? It is absolutely the solution. But you guys all know there's not just one easy button out there that you can just go push that solves these problems. Now the question is, what am I missing? And what you're missing in our opinion, and my opinion, is the real-time component, the experience side of things, right? And so the lifetime, understanding who I am as a customer, even maybe going as far as to saying that Mike has been a customer for 7 years, we think that this is the next funnel we want to put Mike into. That's great. The customer data warehouse, the cloud data warehouse is great at doing that. But when you get me into the funnel, it's the experience that moves me through the funnel. And the cloud data warehouse doesn't do anything for that in the moment conversation, right? It's
the translation that you were talking about, right? As I'm talking to you. Yeah.
That's exactly right. It doesn't do that piece. And this is some really interesting data that we heard at our Digital Velocity conference. Very, very large company, an electronics company, said, we've been running all this data analysis on customers that goes back 12 years. And what we found is that we threw all this data into predictive modelings, trying to figure out what was the next best action for our customers. And you know what we found out? That the 12 years historical data was good, but it was often very much trumped by the last 30 seconds of customer interaction data.
Whoa.
Okay. Think about that. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
What you watched on Netflix 12 years ago, you want to suggest shows off of that? Or
Yeah.
you want to suggest what I watched?
My team has changed. I moved to another city. Like, so many things, right? Oh, yeah. Wow.
Right? So the idea with this is like, look, lifetime data, and then listen, and this is not like one size fits all for all businesses. You're going to get some businesses where it's going to be like, look, the historical data is actually very paramount. Yeah, I totally get that. But what people want in the moment is often much more accurate than what they may have wanted in the past.
Yes.
Than what they did want in the past.
And I think this is such a beautiful nuance. So for the audience, something to think about is, honestly, there is no one size fits all, right? If you look at all your different customer engagement strategies, and you look at the different things you have to do depending on either a different business goal that you have, whether you're starting a brand new campaign and you're launching a brand new product, or whether you're doing a version 2 of something you launched last year, whether you had an issue and you're trying to reach out to people, like in every scenario, what data you expect to analyze, how you use it, and then how you reach out, those are all different things. So that one combined data set in your data cloud cannot always do everything you want perfectly. It's not the perfect center for every strategy. And then when you throw AI into the mix, now the data set and the AI both become consumers of this data set. So now you have to think, oh, what other last minute, latest second data do I need for this particular strategy? And now your connectivity becomes another element of the modern data architecture. Consent is a very important element of the modern data architecture. Composability is a very big part of the modern data architecture. So I think there's so many topics that have come up in the last couple of years. They've been bubbling for many years, but they're all crystallizing now, right? So I just want to lean into composability for a second, because I think that is a very valid topic for this day and age. So at the risk of having you repeat, I just want to say, what does composability mean to you? Because we already talked about running analytics off my data cloud. Would that be composability? Like, what does composability mean to you?
It's funny because I'm seeing the language out there, especially around CDP. I'm seeing composable CDPs. I'm seeing traditional CDPs, right? That label's just been added.
Or package CDPs, yeah.
Right? When I think of composable, I think of something that provides value off of an existing foundation. Okay? Now, what value I provide changes, and what value is needed. Just because I can do something in a composable fashion doesn't mean that solves all my needs, right?
Yes.
And I think that's an important aspect of it. And so when I talk about composability, I'm very much a big fan of composable analytics, right? Analytics platforms that run on top of a cloud data warehouse. I think that will actually be the future, because I think some customers will build their own dashboards and they will, but and that will get them far along. But when you get into these large enterprise organizations that need more of a fleet of dashboarding capabilities, now you start getting into composable analytics. I think that's very interesting too. When I think about the composable customer data platform, again, I'm going back to what type of experiences do you want to provide? Because what the composables do is they sit after the data has come to rest in the data warehouse, and they query the data out of there, and they send it out, and they run campaigns, and that works for list-based marketing, that works for reacquisition-based marketing, top of funnel marketing. Those kinds of things work. It's not as much in the moment as I would like to see. And so from a composable perspective, a composable CDP is in my opinion missing too many experiences. I'm not going to influence that call center call by doing a batch extract and sending data off to saying, hey, you're just going to have to wait in the queue until this batch extract finishes so that I can give you a little bit better experience. Like, we're not getting at that point. And so I think on the composable, the composable term, I like it, especially with the cloud data warehouses being out there. But I don't think that they solve all the experiences, and that's where we sit. When I say better experiences win, faster is definitely a type of an experience that will win, right? If you can send me a discount in 3 days, but I can send you a discount in 3 seconds, who's gonna get the purchase, right? And so that's sort of a big part of it. And now we get into another, let's say, a little bit of a debunking on this zero copy, or single view of the customer, let's go through it. The cloud data warehouse is a beautiful source for the lifetime record. Now the reality is that the real time piece of it absolutely matters. Data collection absolutely matters. So you're gonna be in a situation where, from an experience perspective, you're gonna need a little bit of an experience platform. And the challenge with this is now when you come in there and you have phrases like, well, but I want zero copy. Okay, let's double click into that. We've been using web browsers for a long, long time, right? 20 plus years. they've always had this thing called cache, which was downloading static files and storing them within the browser so that the next time that they can load faster, right? Let me make a copy for performance reasons. When the content delivery networks came out, the Akamai's, the Edgecasts, the Limelights, the CloudFronts, all of these guys, they had these origin nodes, the source of the truth. But then they had edge nodes all over the world that were geographically closer to the end users. And the edge nodes would retrieve data from the origin and make a copy for performance reasons, right? Even when we're using our computers, we grab stuff off the hard drive and we put it into RAM for performance reasons, right? And so the idea is like, do I want zero copy? I don't think so. I think, do I want to have multiple sources of the truth? No. You want to have a single source of the truth. You want to have the best recollection of what you can get. And sometimes that may be in two different places. Sometimes that may be in your data warehouse is going to have most of your lifetime record customer data in it, but maybe there's some new stuff that's coming in through the collection tier that hasn't been flushed out to the cloud data warehouse yet. So you want to reduce the number of places that you have to go look for the source of the truth. But you might have a lifetime source of the truth, and you might have right in the moment a real-time source of the truth. And why that's important is if I look in the data warehouse at Sav and I say, guess what? He's not opted out. I can do whatever I want with him. But in the real-time system, he's just checked the box and you just opted out. Can I? This is my single source of the truth. No, because it's out of date. And that's why these two systems have to work very, very well together.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, if you think about it, my CRM system is not zero copy. My analytics system is not zero copy. My personalization system is not zero copy. So yeah, I mean, I agree that the zero copy as a mission, that I don't make duplicates of my single source of truth everywhere, that makes a lot of sense. But to think that no other system has any data in it so that everything just stays here all the time means you're going to limit yourself a lot. And I think the copy should not be a copy. It should be, like you said, a performance-based data set that you need for very specific reasons that is only there to deliver faster, in the moment, whatever type of result you want to give. But
let's just call it what the cloud data warehouses do. It's a share.
Yeah, it's a share. That's right.
It's a share.
And I love, so just, by the way, some of the questions are so good that I read them and I'm like, oh, I should talk about those. So we're going to get there in a second, Derek and Ketan and everybody. Thank you. But as you can see, Mike and I don't get to talk a lot. So we're excited about this too. Yeah, so when I joined Tealium, just for the audience, I joined Tealium 6 years ago. I asked Mike right away, like, why don't we have a data warehouse in our platform? Why are we just a streaming tool? Why do we just keep a snapshot? And Mike's answer to me back then was, well, why should I build a warehouse when all my customers are going to build their own warehouse? And I feel like that was the most insightful thing I heard back then about why our platform is a streaming platform, because we felt you need it and you're not going to build it yourself. And we felt that streaming will complement your storage and your aggregation really, really well. And that's kind of that we always believed that's what you needed. And we still believe that to this day. Even if you go the composable route, even if you go reverse ETL plus data cloud, what you're going to need is real-time streaming, orchestration, activation, intelligence with consent to complement your data store, right? You need those two things together. And that's the part that we believe makes this stuff modern. And like Mike said, it's modern because your customers now expect a truly connected experience. It's modern because you don't know what you're going to need tomorrow with AI coming at a speed that we've not known in a while. It's modern because you might have to use data points and model scores from anywhere in your ecosystem for every touch point. And that was not the plan when you were putting all the data in the data cloud, right? The data cloud is amazing for some things, and it needs help for other things. And that when you build all that stuff together, that's what people are referring to as the modern data architecture right now. So I'm going to actually keep going, Mike, but I'm going to use the questions to keep going because I really like some of these questions.
Okay.
So, okay, this question is from Ketan. I'm going to read the whole thing because I love the question. So, all these customer data foundation on cloud and related concepts are almost a decade old. That's a great point, Ketan, because even my CRO, Ted, loves to say that to me, that he was selling enterprise data warehouses over 10 years ago, right? So everybody has had on-prem data warehouses forever, and everybody has APIs for ingest and integrate. But AI is the real impact, right? So how is AI going to enhance customer experience, Mike? Can you shed some light on your vision of CX in the AI era and what the data clouds will need to prep as part of that? Because I think that's a great question. At what point can that become revenue growth for CX?
I love this question.
That's why I was waiting.
Okay, so trying to expedite the answer. Lifetime records about a customer need to be stored, but right, and they're stored in a cloud data warehouse. But experiences stream. Okay, experiences stream. Okay, now where I'm at right now is that when I'm thinking about AI, if I go back to when I used to tag up my data foundation in the vendor nomenclature, right, in the analytic vendor nomenclature, my LLMs wouldn't make any sense out of that. But now with the strong data foundation that's in the nomenclature of the business, hopefully data typed properly, now you start to see that the LLMs can start to make a lot of sense of the data that's coming into them automatically. Yes. So that's a powerful lift up in where you run the AI, what you do with the AI, that doesn't matter as much yet, right? But now we're talking about that AI is only as good as the data you put in. Now we're back to why you need a strong data foundation, because it's going to fuel AI. Now the thing becomes, if I want to use AI, what do I want to use it for? Do I want to use it to analyze the lifetime capability of a customer to try to figure out maybe how can I engage with them better off a cold start, right? Because we don't have an active conversation. How do I do cold start engagement? How do I move them into the next funnel? Or am I going to use AI for a streaming experience, right? Which is the real-time conversational experience. Now I have the ability where I can say, I'm going to run my lifetime AI over here in the cloud data warehouse, but I'm going to run my real-time AI smaller sets, right? I'm not analyzing, like we said, I'm not analyzing the last 12 years to try to make an in the moment decision. I'm going to analyze the last 60 seconds to try to understand how do I influence that. So I think that's very important to understand that, again, it's not just one magic button. You could have lifetime AI that you want to run, and you could have experiential AI that you want to run, and that is going to run in different places. When we think about this, I'll tell you where the modern data architecture is going. These guys.
On the edge.
These devices, they're already starting to have AI chips in them. So you think, what am I going to do? I'm going to collect data here out at the edge in the mobile device, collect it, send it in, snowpipe it in, wait for some process to wake up, bring it in, do some AI mumbo jumbo on it, data, snowpipe it back out, send it back up to the client, and then there's a lot that can fail in there. It's going to take a lot of time. No, I'm going to run AI at the edge. I'm going to run the experiential AI at the edge, because that's where the customer is. If that's where the data is, right? I'm running it on the cloud because that's where the data is. What if I can get the data up there to where the customer is? If I can the closer I can get the data to the customer, the more AI enriched experience I can run right there in the moment.
Man, every time I always have this mental crisis.
Three more webinars, right? Three more webinars.
I'm always having this mental crisis. Should I summarize what he just said, or should I ask the next question? So, what I want to do here is I want to help everybody just hear what he said, right? Outbound marketing strategies where you go reach out to somebody and try to bring them in and do stuff, that works great at batch. That works great with lifetime analytics, with insights. That is amazing. Data clouds are fantastic for that, right? And that's the part that everybody understands. But the response strategies, the ones that are in the moment, the ones that are because I called you, or I'm sitting on your website, or I walked into your store, now that's a very different set of tools, and they have a very different performance requirement. And how you use data in that situation is where I think is the next frontier, because the storage part has now been solved. And in that case, you have to move data elements and scores around your ecosystem very quickly, the right one at the right time at the right place. That becomes relevant when I'm talking to you. And now this is the part that we feel when you complement your data cloud with that strategy, that's when you're really getting into the modern architecture, right? So there's a question about PII and consent and shared experiences in the data cloud from Abhishek. So can we hit on that? Because I think that gets sort of swept under the rug quite often.
It's when 2018 came and GDPR came, it changed everything. Even from an engineering perspective, when we would be designing back-end components, we had to add this tagline to the end. That's great. How are you going to purge it? How are you going to purge it? Right? Because you have all these requirements that you have to deal with. I want to back up real quick to something that you said, right? Which we're talking about, where the cloud data warehouse is good for the lifetime perspective, for the cold start, right? For the reach out, for the reacquisition. Remember the example I gave you where I said that as far as the warehouse was concerned, I hadn't opted out, but in the real-time session, I had just opted out. If I'm trying to do a cold start with you, but you just happen to be coincidentally on my website right at that moment, that's probably not a good time I don't need to do a cold start with you because you've just started something. And so the idea behind this is that where do I look for my data, right? I'm going to look in the lifetime. I'm going to figure out how do I instrument a cold start, but I need to look in the real time to see how do I need to instrument a cold start, or have you already reinitiated a cold start? Make sense?
Yes. Oh my God. I was just doing an email list last week, and in my filter, I chose anybody who's opened email in the last 30 days, I want to exclude. And it left out people that had just opened the email when I was running the list. And then even though they had literally just opened the email, they got that email from me. And I was trying to understand where in my filter did I screw up. And it's because that last 30 seconds gets left out, right? What a great point. For the audience, like this is something to think about. Data clouds was long overdue, and it's an amazing tool for all of us. It's opening unbelievable doors. And what it's doing is it's taking this, the CDP value proposition was put all your data in one place, aggregate your data, unify your data, with identity, and then activate and orchestrate and have intelligence. So the data clouds, they don't solve that top layer of the activation, orchestration, intelligence. They solve the storage, aggregation, unification part. So don't start thinking about what are you going to do for the activation, orchestration, consented, connectivity. That's where the real special sauce is coming, especially for AI now. Philomena has a question about, do we have a reference architecture? We do. It's on our website, and I'm happy to share it if you guys reach out to me later. But this session, we're not doing slides, so I'm going to leave that out. One question we have from Ash is, so in this world with AI, what do you see as the role for unstructured data? Because I think now, you mentioned this a little bit earlier about LLMs, but I do feel video and large text and documents and images are all becoming very relevant now. So what do you see as a role for unstructured data?
Well, I think that the LLMs are going to structure the data for us. I think that I don't think that data. I don't think that data will stay unstructured. I think if you want to make use of it, and you want to make sense of it, you got to figure out a way to structure it, either by running it through, batch ETL processes to take unstructured and structure it, or to, as you're streaming it into systems or streaming it to places, you're structuring it on the fly in that stream, or you're using, I see this now. Anytime I get an email that's a certain size, the button pops up. You want me to summarize this for you? Yeah, of course I do. I don't want to read this whole thing. And so I think that's another aspect of AI that's going to help is trying to understand the unstructured data. And that's, but again, here's what I would say. And going back to, there was a question on PII and consent, things like that. I don't want those data points lost in a sea of unstructured data, big JSON blobs, right? That's data that's very important. So I think in unstructured data might be something that's kind of in the garage that I haven't figured out I need to use yet. But once I figure out that I need to use it or the value that it can add for me, then I'm going to turn it into structure, and then I'm going to use it within my business as a structured element, and I'm not going to leave it unstructured.
Yeah, I love that analogy. What we spoke to a customer last week, and what they were saying is they are using Gen AI to categorize and summarize and label customer reviews as they are created. So I write a customer review, it's 400, 500 words, it's a text blob. Now that's unstructured data. It doesn't show up in any report. I can't analyze it. I can't do anything with it. So what they do is they run it through an LLM on the way in. And now it's adding a positive or a negative label, a sentiment label. It's adding a quick summary, what the product is about. Is it about usage? Is it about feature? Is it about something else? And it's telling them some keywords that they're looking for. Now, suddenly, all those things become structured data in my table, and it shows up in my report. And now that review is that much more useful, right? So I actually think, just like Mike was saying, Gen AI and LLMs are going to make unstructured data, structured data available to us in all our reports and all our decision making, which I think is fantastic. I'm very excited about what that's going to bring. And, I want to hit on a point that we were talking about composable earlier. This comes up a lot. We're not saying that composable doesn't have a place. In fact, if you put 8-9 figures worth of data in your data cloud, of course, a reverse ETL tool is going to help you act on that. No question about it. What we're saying is we don't think composable CDPs give you full coverage on all your customer experience strategies. We're finding activation orchestration tools like Tealium plus composable CDPs are actually the full coverage that you need these days. So yeah, Ketan and I agree with you. I think the hybrid is probably the best coverage, but of course it depends on your needs. It depends on how much you're spending. It depends on your situation, your market. But yeah, our enterprise customers, our global companies, they have both because you just need both, right? They do different things and they do them well for different reasons. So in talking about that, like what do you think, Mike, we want to do? This is a question from Priri. What is our position on composability? Do we think we're going to go that route? Like, how do we want to partner with these data clouds?
This could get me into trouble.
Well, we can just talk about what we have coming out, and
listen. I think that that there is one truth that I believe is out there. Just as the nature of companies is to say, I want to have one place that I can go to that's a best record of what's going on with a customer. And that's why I'm investing in the cloud data warehouse. Now, the next piece is when we move to the experiences side of things. Now the idea is I want to have one place where I'm defining the experiences, not executing the experiences, right? Those happen in the ESP and the DSP and the social and all that stuff, right? The execution happens in the actual tool, but the definition of the customer journey, right? The customer interaction journey, the experiential journey. I want to do that in one place. And there are places where you're going to say, I need cold start activation and I need streaming experiences activation. And so from my perspective, I would say I lean heavily towards the streaming experiences. I'm very much an in the moment, a conversational guy, as you can see. I'm not at a loss for words ever. But to be able to do better cold start capabilities, yeah, we absolutely are investing in better cold start capabilities. And we're investing in cold start capabilities where the data doesn't have to reside within our system and it resides in the cloud data warehouse. So if that makes us check the composability box, then I would say, yeah, we're going to check the composability box. Because again, we want coverage.
Yeah.
We want coverage, right? This is a baton race. This is a relay race where you have the cloud data warehouse. They run their lap and they do their thing, and then they hand the baton to the streaming experience vendor, and they run their lap and do their thing. And if there's gaps in the way that we audience or the way that we interact with customers, and there's more desire around that cold start interaction, I would say a lot of people like to do cold start interactions because they're easier. Right? How much easier is it just type a text and send it to somebody versus engaging in a conversation, right?
Absolutely.
This is the hardest right here. I can write an email all day long. I can write a letter all day long. That's easy. You're not going to look at me. You're not going to give me scowls. You're not going to do all that kind of stuff. I'm in this conversation right now. This is the hard one. And so this is the one that I think people need to be able to nail, but we're going to help you nail some of the others.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, I by the way, audience, you guys have been amazing, right? So many questions, so many follow-ups. Very, very grateful for that. Very grateful for all of you staying on for so long. You can see we can talk about this all day. We have a lot of content on our site about modern data architecture. You can find Mike and I on LinkedIn. You can ask us questions directly on LinkedIn if you want to challenge us there or you want to discuss with us. This is not a simple topic. This is evolving daily. AI is making everybody reevaluate where their data might need to be, how you might need to use it, how often, at what scale. The need for real-time connectivity has never been more, just because you want to use the model score at the right time. There's so many things happening, and we are excited that we get to live in the middle of it, and we are forced to innovate to keep up with it, which is amazing. So yeah, I think Mike, do you have any parting thoughts for our audience?
No, listen, the parting thoughts that I would have for the audience is this is complicated stuff. I'm the stronger data foundation you have. Listen, two things can happen. One, you could potentially become a better customer of Tealium's, or two, I can become a better customer of you because you're giving me better experiences, right? So everybody wins. Sal, what I'd like to do, and I know this is a little unorthodox in a webinar, can you download all the questions that everybody asked? And you and I are going to sit down, and you and I are going to, when we release this webinar, you and I are going to release it with a document where I'm going to give answers to every question that was asked on here.
Oh, how cool. Yeah. I mean, yes, 100% yes. And I was just going to say, Derek and Jose, I know we didn't specifically get to your questions, but we were going to answer them. And then Ketan just sent another question. So yeah, we will, everybody heard Mike. Mike and I will do a blog post where we'll respond with all the answers to all your questions. And, there's no limit to the number of options you all have for how you go about this path. But what's happening now, and I've seen this in other MarTech categories before, is now the how affects the options you're going to have in how you engage your customers. Before it was the what, then it was the why. Now it's about the how. How you integrate your data, how you set up your tech stack, how you set up your data foundation, it will affect the choices you have in customer engagement on the other side. So now that stuff starts to matter. The nuance matters now. This is where I love it. I love the complexity. I love the options. And, this is what we hope to keep solving for you guys. So with that, I'm going to say thank you all. Thank you to all the audience. And we hope we'll see you again on the next webinar and talk to you on LinkedIn. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
That wraps up our first lesson. We've covered key concepts around the modern data architecture and how to connect data for that superior customer experience. Don't forget to download the materials and prepare for our next session on building a solid data foundation for AI. See you there, and don't forget, all sessions are available on demand so you can learn at your pace at your own schedule.